February 1967. The heat in Laiki felt like it was trying to bake us right through our boots. We just dragged ourselves back from some pointless sweep up north. Hadn't even had a chance to catch our breath properly before we saw them. The staff officers, faces all grim, maps spread out across their tables like a damn tablecloth. Figured something big was brewing. Me and the boys were trying to catch a breather after a short patrol. Cleaning our M16s, the familiar scent of gun oil and sweat thick in the humid, dusty air. Choppers were constantly beating the air overhead, a never-ending thrum that became the soundtrack to our lives out there. Trucks rumbled past, kicking up clouds of that fine red dust, hauling troops and gear. Yeah, you could feel it in your bones. Something was coming. February 67. I remember thinking, more talking to myself. A habit you pick up when you spend enough time with your own thoughts in the damn jungle. Laiki's heat trying to cook us alive. Just back from a goose chase up north, and already the brass is huddled over maps like buzzards over a fresh kill. Big trouble's on the horizon. I can smell it. Then Sergeant Miller, a leathery old dog who'd seen more than his share, strolled over. He didn't waste words. "Listen up, cherries," he barked, though some of us weren't exactly fresh off the boat anymore. "Pack your gear. Full load. In a few days, we're taking a little stroll into Charlie's Central Park. Gonna be a real party." Warzone C. Just the name sounded like a postcard from hell. The higher-ups were saying it was lousy with high-level VC. Their whole damn command structure holed up in there. Looked like the big red one was about to get another taste of Tay Ninh jungle. You could see it on the faces around me, a tightening around the eyes. Jaws set a little firmer, but everyone trying to play it cool. Ski, always the joker, whistled some dumb tune, way off key. Tex spat out a wad of gum, like he was punctuating Miller's announcement. Warzone C, I thought, the name echoing Miller's words. Sounds like hell on earth. Brass says it's crawling with top VC, their whole command. The big red one is heading back into the Tay Ninh jungle for another round. The morning of, or maybe it was the pre-dawn hours of February 22nd, time got blurry out there. We were lined up, a long, silent column of us from the 1st Infantry, geared up and waiting. The air was already thick with the smell of diesel and the roar of Huey engines warming up. I double-checked my ammo, cinched my helmet strap a little tighter. My gaze drifted over the faces around me. A lot of them still damn near kids, looking for a familiar glint of reassurance. Or maybe just someone who looked as scared as I felt but was better at hiding it. They're calling this the biggest operation of the war. The words formed in my head, a voiceover to the unfolding scene. Tens of thousands of troops. Objective: capture COSVN, the central office for South Vietnam. Sounds grand, don't it? But for a grunt like me, it just means more humping the boonies, more sleepless nights, and God knows how many close calls waiting in the shadows. We watched as the first wave of the big red one loaded onto M113s. Those armored personnel carriers looking like angry metal beasts ready to charge. Our division, we were part of the hammer or the anvil in this whole damn thing, depending on who you asked and what day it was. Then it was our turn. Me and my squad, we clambered onto a Huey, the rotor wash kicking up a storm of dust and grit that stung your eyes. With a lurch, the bird lifted, the ground falling away beneath us. Touching down in Warzone C was like stepping onto another planet. The LZ was choked with smoke and the red dust that seemed to coat everything in that part of the world. The first thing that hit you, once the chopper noise faded, was the sound of the jungle itself, a chorus of bugs you couldn't name, strange bird calls, and then this heavy, oppressive silence that felt more dangerous than any noise. Feet down in Warzone C, I remember thinking the words a silent commentary. Air thick with the smell of rot and damp. Feels like 1,000 unseen eyes are watching every step we take from the dark green shadows. The big red one started to spread out, squads fanning across the terrain, ready for anything. I was on point for my squad. M16 held tight, my finger near the trigger, senses cranked to 11. The first contacts were small, sneaky. Not what you call a firefight, more like Charlie letting us know he was there. We found fresh trails, boot prints in the mud that weren't ours, spent K-shells glinting in the undergrowth. Then came the booby traps. Punji stakes hidden under leaves, little toe-popper mines designed to maim, not kill, but to slow us down, mess with our heads. One guy in our platoon, a new kid, caught one. Wasn't too bad, luckily, but it was enough to put everyone on edge. Me and Tex helped Doc patch him up, the kid's face pale under his tan. The tension ratcheted up another notch. Sniper fire. Just a couple of rounds, whipping past, so close you could hear the air crack. We hit the dirt, firing blind into the thickets where we thought it came from. Nothing. No sign of who fired. Just the damn jungle staring back at us. Charlie's smart, the voice in my head narrated. He ain't stupid enough to go toe-to-toe with a whole damn division. Not out here. They're like ghosts. They hit and fade, spreading fear with those damn traps and shots from nowhere. Later, we moved through an area that had been hit by B-52s. Arclight, they called it. Looked like the moon. Trees splintered and tossed around like matchsticks. The ground pockmarked with craters so big you could lose a jeep in them. We found a few busted-up bunkers, some small caches of rice and ammo Charlie had left behind in a hurry. Personal stuff, too. Little notebooks, a few faded photos. Ski picked one up, a picture of a woman and a couple of kids. He just looked at it for a long moment, then passed it to me. "Look at that, Jimmy," he said, his voice quiet. "Got families, just like us." Orders were to destroy everything, I thought. The image of those craters burned into my mind. The bombs did most of the work, but there was no feeling of victory. Just desolation and a whole lot of unanswered questions. Nightfall in War Zone C was a different kind of bad. The darkness had just swallowed everything. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves, it made your heart jump into your throat. We took turns on watch, eyes straining into the black, fighting off sleep, fighting off the damn fear. Now and then, a few mortar rounds or rockets would come whistling in from out there. Incoming mail from Charlie. Just enough to cause a little chaos, maybe wound a guy or two, keep us jumpy. Me and Tex, we shared a foxhole, nursed a cigarette between us, trying to talk about anything but where we were, just to chase the shakes away. Wonder what that COSVN headquarters really looks like. Tex mused, blowing a smoke ring that dissolved instantly in the damp air. Think we'll actually bag one of the bigwigs, Jimmy? I managed a weak grin. Just worry about keeping your own ass in one piece for now, Tex. The days turned into weeks. March bled into early April. The big red one was tasked with finding and destroying the enemy, but mostly it felt like we were just finding jungle, and the only thing getting destroyed was our boot leather and our nerves. We humped heavy packs, ammo, carats, water, more ammo, under that relentless sun, wading through streams, pushing through bamboo thickets so dense you couldn't see 5 feet in front of you. The red dust clinging to everything. The mission for the big red one was search and destroy. I'd narrate to the jungle sounds. But most of the time, we just searched. Destroyed? Not so much. Just sweat, hunger, and blisters on your feet. Then, one hot, sticky afternoon, it happened. We were moving across a relatively open patch, maybe an old burn, heading for a new patrol base. That's when all hell broke loose. AK-47s opened up from 3 sides, grenades thumping through the air. Ambush. We hit the deck, instinct taking over, returning fire, muzzle flashes winking back at us from the tree line. Ski, who was right next to me, he grunted, spun around, and went down. Took a round in the shoulder. I laid down a spray of cover fire while I dragged him behind a fat tree trunk. the bark splintering around us. Doc, our medic, was there in a flash, bless his heart, working on ski amidst the chaos. The firefight lasted maybe 15-20 minutes, but it felt like an eternity. Then, just as suddenly as it started, Charlie pulled back, melted into the jungle. They were good at that. Damn good. Hit hard, cause casualties, then vanish. Blood had been spilled. The voice in my head was somber. Ski was lucky, just a shoulder wound. But that feeling of helplessness, watching your buddy go down right in front of you, it sticks with you. Charlie hits and runs, leaving us with our wounded and our rage. Ski got choppered out. We pushed on, a little quieter, a little angrier. The jungle felt even more menacing now. We eventually set up a fire support base deep in Warzone C, what the brass probably thought was a strategic spot. LZ George, they called it, near a place called FGU, if I remember right. Felt more like LZ godforsaken to me. We dug in, strung wire, filled sandbags, the usual routine. You try to make it home, but home is just a hole in the ground with a bit of cover. Then they came. It wasn't like the hit-and-run crap we'd mostly been dealing with. This was different. This was a full-throated, damn the consequences assault. Must have been a whole VC battalion, maybe from their 9th Division, throwing everything they had at us. It started with the mortar. That sickening thump, thump, thump in the distance. Then the whistle, and the crump of explosions walking right into our perimeter. RPGs screamed in, trailing smoke, slamming into bunkers and spitting shrapnel everywhere. Then the tree line erupted with muzzle flashes, a hailstorm of green tracers cutting through the pre-dawn gloom. This is it. The voice in my head wasn't narrating anymore. It was just a stark, cold fact. This is the big one. There's no poetry in a firefight like that. It's just noise and chaos and the metallic taste of fear in your mouth. You stop thinking. You just react. My M16 became an extension of me, bucking against my shoulder, spitting out rounds. Change magazine, aim, fire. Change magazine, aim, fire, over and over. The barrel got so hot I could feel the heat through the handguard. Tex was a madman on the M60, our pig. He was set up a few feet away, traversing that big gun back and forth, streams of tracers arcing out into the darkness, cutting down the figures that were trying to breach the wire. He was screaming, cussing, daring them to come get some. God bless Tex. Men were yelling, some in anger, some in pain. Medic, medic. That cry, you never get used to it. I saw guys go down, guys I'd shared smokes with, guys whose last names I barely knew but whose faces were etched in my mind. The air filled with the smell of gunpowder, hot metal, and blood. It was pure, unadulterated hell. It was hell on earth. The words hammered in my brain. Bullets flying like angry bees. Gunsmoke so thick you could choke on it. We weren't just fighting for our lives, but for the guy next to us. The big red one doesn't back down. Never. Just when I thought we were about to be overrun, when the perimeter was looking thinner than cheap coffee, we heard them. The cavalry. First the hump of Huey gunships. Hogs with their rocket pods and miniguns blazing. Then the jets, screaming in low, dropping napalm that turned the jungle into a roaring inferno, pushing Charlie back from our wire. They dropped bombs that shook the damn ground, blasting craters where VC formations had been moments before. The assault finally broke. They'd had enough, or maybe they just lost too many. They pulled back, dragging their wounded, leaving their dead scattered outside the wire. It had been hours. Felt like years. Our position was a wreck. Bunkers smashed, wire torn up, smoking craters everywhere. And the cost was heavy. I remember sitting there, my ears ringing, a dull ache in my head from a near miss. Maybe a piece of shrapnel had grazed my helmet or a blast wave had rattled my brains. I was covered in dirt and sweat, my throat raw from yelling. Later, I found myself in the aid station, a collection of tents that smelled of antiseptic and despair. I wasn't really hurt, just dazed and utterly spent. Maybe a scratch on my arm I didn't remember getting. Doc checked me over, gave me a canteen of water that tasted like heaven. Ski was long gone, already on a medevac chopper to a hospital ship or somewhere safer. I just sat on an empty ammo crate, watching the medics work on the real wounded, the guys missing limbs, the guys with gaping holes in them. Their moans and whimpers a terrible soundtrack to the aftermath. Tex found me, his face black with soot and grime, his eyes hollow. He just slumped down beside me, didn't say a word. There was nothing to say. Sergeant Miller came by, his face looking even older than usual. He put a heavy hand on my shoulder. "You did good, Ryan," he said, his voice hoarse. "Get some rest. Tomorrow's another day." Survived, the voice in my head whispered, flat and tired. That's the only word that means anything right now. But a part of me died out there today, died with the friends who ain't coming back. War, it takes more than just lives. It takes pieces of your soul. The fighting in Junction City, the big set-piece battles anyway, started to taper off after that. Seemed like Charlie had shot his wad, or maybe he just decided we weren't worth the price anymore. The big red one, along with the other outfits involved, kept on with the sweeps, the patrols, the ambushes, but the intensity had dropped. There was still a tension in the air, that constant hum of danger, but now it was mixed with a weary anticipation, a feeling that maybe, just maybe, this particular slice of hell was coming to an end. We found more caches, tons of rice, weapons, documents, all the stuff the brass loved to count. But that COSVN headquarters, the main prize, the reason for this whole damn circus? It was like trying to catch smoke with your bare hands. Charlie's top dogs were long gone. If they'd ever really been there in the first place in the numbers the intelligence spooks claimed. We tore Warzone C apart, I'd reflect, looking out over the scarred landscape. Found tons of rice, weapons, papers. But the one thing the top brass wanted most, Charlie's brain trust. It was like chasing a phantom. Felt like they were playing cat and mouse with us, and we were the damn mouse. One patrol, we stumbled onto a tunnel complex. Not just a few spider holes, but a real underground city, or so it seemed. We were cautious. Didn't go too deep. That was a good way to get yourself killed. Become a tunnel rat for a day and a statistic the next. But what we saw was enough. Dark, damp passages, signs that people had been living down there, and recently too. Gave you the creeps, knowing the enemy could be right under your feet. Listening, waiting. Orders came down to blow the entrances we found, seal them up. Another task in a long list of tasks. One evening, as things were definitely winding down, Emmy and Tex found ourselves on a small hill, overlooking a vast stretch of the jungle we've been calling home for the past couple of months. The sun was setting, painting the sky in those incredible oranges and purples you only see in the tropics, like God was trying to apologize for the hell underneath. We were sharing the last of our key-rat crackers and sipping the last warm, metallic-tasting water from our canteens. "So, you reckon this is it, Jimmy?" Tex finally broke the silence, his voice low. "Heard a rumor we might be pulling out in a few days." I nodded, gazing out at the endless green. "Hope so, Tex. God, I hope so. I'm tired. Bone tired." He was quiet for a minute, then, "You think we won, Jimmy? This whole damn thing?" I looked out at the darkening jungle, at the smoke still rising from some distant, forgotten bombing run. "I don't know, Tex," I said, and I meant it. I honestly don't know. We killed a lot of them, sure, blew up a lot of their stuff. But they're still out there. And we lost a lot too. Win or lose? The voice in my head echoed his question. For us grunts, that question's way above our pay grade. All we know is we made it through another day, another fight. And right now, that feels like victory enough. And then, just like the rumors said, the order came down. Mid-May, Junction City was officially over. Time to pack up and pull out. The Big Red One, what was left of us who'd gone in, started the slow process of withdrawing. It was a strange sight, those long columns of trucks and M113s grinding their way out of Tay Ninh, away from war zone. See, we were caked in that damn red dust, weary down to our souls, but we were moving out. I sat slumped in the back of a deuce and a half, watching the jungle that had been our prison and our battlefield recede. It had become familiar in a terrifying way, every shadow, every tree line holding the potential for death. The dust kicked up by our convoy hung in the air, a red veil over everything. Junction City was over, my internal narrator stated, a weariness lacing the words. Nearly 3 months wrestling with the damn jungle. We were leaving behind scars on the land and deeper ones in our minds. They said we'd succeeded, smashed a major enemy sanctuary, but I couldn't help but wonder, at what cost? Getting back to Lai Khe, our rear base, felt like re-entering civilization, even if it was just a bigger, slightly less dangerous version of the jungle. First thing was a shower, trying to scrub off weeks of grime and the lingering smell of fear. A shave. Clean fatigues. Mail from home. I found a quiet spot in our tent, away from the forced cheerfulness of guys who were just glad to be alive. I had a letter from my mom, full of hometown news that felt like it was from another planet, another lifetime. And one from Mary, my girl back then. Her perfume, faint but still there, rose from the paper. I read them both, and yeah, I ain't ashamed to say a few tears cut clean tracks through the dust still on my face. Some of the guys who'd been wounded but were mobile enough, like Ski with his arm in a sling, were already there. We clapped each other on the back, a little awkwardly. For others, there was just news, delivered quietly by the CO or the first sergeant. More names for the ever-growing list of the lost. They called us heroes when we got back to the rear, the voice reflected, a bitter edge to it. But deep down, I knew better. War doesn't make heroes. It just makes survivors, and it makes ghosts. Junction City. It was just another chapter in the never-ending goddamn diary of this war. A few days later, things had settled into a routine of sorts. Cleaning gear, equipment checks, the endless hurry-up and wait of army life. I was standing by myself near the edge of the base as the sun went down. That same fiery sunset. My hand went unconsciously to a faint puckered line on my forearm. A souvenir from a piece of shrapnel I barely remembered getting during that big fight at LZ George. Or maybe I was just feeling for the dog tags of a buddy who didn't make it. Tags I'd carried for a while before turning them in. Sergeant Miller found me. "Ryan," he said, not unkindly. "Got new orders. Pack your kit. We're moving out." Different AO, same damn war. I just nodded. What else was there to do? The war goes on, I thought, the weariness settling deep in my bones. And me, just another grunt in the Big Red One, about to step into another meat grinder. But the memories of Junction City, of that red Tay Ninh dust, of the firefights and the faces of the men I fought alongside, the ones who made it and the ones who didn't, they'll stay with me, forever, until this war finally ends, if that day ever comes. The choppers were already starting to warm up in the distance, their blades beginning that familiar, rhythmic beat. Just another sunset, just another war, stretching out ahead, as far as a young man could see.